Good evening, folks. My name is Edward Crouch. I'm Conservative Councillor for Worthing's Marine Ward and member of the Planning Committee. Happy New Year and welcome to my first video of 2015. What an exciting thing I'm sure this will be. Thank you for joining me on this grim night. It's the 9th now, but this is the Planning Committee meeting update for the 7th of January. Really grim out there. You might better hear bit of wind, so definitely filmed in Worthing, if anyone doubts that. But yes, thank you for dropping by. I'm coming to you now in HD, apparently. My poor old Mac died, and so here we are. I apologise, though, because I don't really have the face for HD, so sorry about that. Okay, so there are 8 items on the agenda. I will try and whistle through. I think I'm getting better at these shorter videos. He lies. But I'll whistle through. 2 items. First off, items 1 and 6 were deferred. Reason they were deferred, don't really like deferring things when they can be decided, but these were deferred for a good reason. There wasn't enough notice given, by all accounts, to neighbours in both of these cases because of the Christmas post. I think things were sent out, Christmas post, but things get missing, million postcards, Christmas cards and whatnot, but they were... The letters were delayed, and also the people who wanted to attend the meetings who couldn't were direct neighbours. We're not talking grannies, aunties, sister-in-law who lives a million miles away. We're talking next-door neighbours or over-the-road neighbours. So they've been deferred. 64 Sea Lane and 11 Church Way. They've been deferred to the next meeting or the meeting after that. So I'll crack on. Right, first one was number 1 Fursridge Road up in Salvington near the windmill. A fantastic windmill. That was an application to turn 2 rather run-down derelict flats into a house and to build a garage. Now, slightly confusingly, the house, the works on the house and the works on the garage had already started, which a lot of residents don't like. If you've got a planning application in, it's the decent thing to wait for people on the committee to make a decision. But this person decided not to do that. Interestingly, in planning, you don't punish people for being terribly naughty and doing things like that, no matter how tempting it is. It's not something that we do because we just don't do that. But it's not good practice, so don't do it. Okay, quite a lot of debate on this one to do with the size of it, its proximity to the mill, and the impact that it would have on this rather leafy area of the town. There was some technical information in the report regarding wind flow, and this was something that was sort of disputed based on where the windmill is. It's quite surrounded by houses, and there are a few people who suggested that more houses might mean less wind for the windmill, meaning less grinding capability, less electricity generating capability and whatnot. There were a number of objectors, and there was one person, I believe, on the day speaking in favour, which was the applicant. My objections were that the garage was nice. Well, it was not an objection. I said in the meeting that, having been on the committee for a few months, I've seen quite a lot of tat come before us, some really nasty developments that I've had the great pleasure of saying no to, sometimes on my own, but I've had quite a lot of pleasure in saying no. This wasn't tat, but it was huge. It was a great big thing. This garage, well, it's bigger than my house. You could have honestly, put half of Noah's Ark in this garage. It was vast, too big, too close to the road, and it was turned down, which was the right decision. The applicant, I guess, wouldn't be very happy because he's already built it. All the more reason not to start building things until you've got planning permission. But it was huge, and it was turned down. Maybe if it was smaller, it would be put through, because actually it was quite a nice shape. Turning 2 rundown flats into a house, great idea, nice area, whatever. But really, that application couldn't go through, so that was turned down, and the chap is going to have to resubmit and or take down his garage. So sorry about that. The next one was 15 Fursridge Road. Very similar area, just around the corner, right near the windmill. It's really great, actually. You've got to go up there and see that mill. It's probably, if it's not fixed, it'll be spinning around at 1 billion miles an hour in this wind. But go and see it. It's great. It's fantastic. And the people that look after it are a really dedicated bunch. So good on them. 15 Fursridge Road was minor changes to my screensaver's kicking, was minor changes to an existing application. The house is sort of like a bungalow at the back, but then it turns into a house at the front, south-facing. And the changes were to relatively minor things, moving a chimney stack, changing a window into a sort of a different type of dormer. Now, there was, again, a lot of objection, quite impassioned objection, from the local residents, specifically the people who are related to the mill. Now, this wasn't an application to turn this into a bigger house. That application was dealt with last year and it was approved. What was being asked of us, which was quite unreasonable of the objectors, was to undo last year's planning permission and throw this one out as well. Now, the legal officer quite rightly advised us that we can't do that. You've got your application, it's permitted. This is just making minor changes. So I tried in my little bit speechy thing that we do to address the objectors, because they're a really passionate group of people. They do fantastic work for that mill. But what they were asking was unreasonable. We couldn't, even if we wanted to, we couldn't do it. The gentleman and the applicant and his family seemed a really lovely guy. Rather than being a speculative developer trying to get wads of cash, he wanted to make this property, which needed this work doing because it was damp and a bit decrepit. He needed it to improve the family home for his family. He used a phrase that really stuck in my mind that I really loved, which is something along the lines of, "We want to make this property our forever home," which is great. He's got 2 little kids. They want to stay there forever. That's the kind of people we want in Worthing, and to be perfectly honest, it's that kind of ethos and cultural thing that I really like to see. People who want to make Worthing their home, rather than people who just want to come in, build revolting structures and bugger off down the pub. So that was approved, and I'm not sure how happy the mill people were, but our hands were, I don't like to say this because they weren't tied, but they were in terms of getting rid of the application for last year. That didn't happen, that couldn't happen, and I'm sorry about that, but it couldn't be done. The next one was 15 Wyke Avenue. Before I was elected, there was a few years ago, there was a issue down in Goring to do with a fence. A huge uproar, someone put a fence up without permission, and I sat there to my innocent self thinking, oh dear, there must be more important things in the world. Turns out there's not. Fences are really quite important, especially when they're in a conservation area. This is a retrospective application, again another naughty one, that had been put in. By all accounts, there'd been some misinformation, or may not have been understood by the applicant, but it had gone up in a conservation area without permission. Now, that in itself is not a problem in terms of you wouldn't turn it down just for that reason. What you would turn it down for is looking horrible, which is what it looked really, really horrible. It kind of looked like, you know, the wood you start barbecues with. You imagine that, but 40 feet of it going right on this huge corner plot all the way around. It looked terrible. I could not support that in any way, shape or form. Some members suggested maybe putting artificial hedging on this fence, because you can't put actual hedging because of the way the front garden is. That was actually probably worse for me, artificial hedging in that nice Edwardian little enclave of Worthing. So that was turned down, and the guys can have to take it down or resubmit something. It looked really, really ropey. Go and have a look before it comes down, but it looked really naff, so that got turned down. Right, the next few were relatively uncontroversial. We had 84 Meadow Road, which is an application that's been live for a little while, but that was to demolish a load of really, really poor quality bedsit flats and replace them with some houses. This, again, wasn't a complete application. It was to make some minor changes. I say minor changes. It was minor in terms of what it actually was doing, which was changing some windows and doors. But the cost saving was £50,000. And considering it's being built by a social landlord, which I understand to be Worthing Homes, I think we're inclined to say that that's quite a lot of money, and I'm sure that money could be much better be used for a social cause that Worthing Homes do. So that was put through with no objections, and I'm really looking forward to seeing these houses, because that part of Worthing desperately needs the housing, and the housing there is of such low quality that that you wouldn't want to live there. No offence at all to the people that do live there. I think that they would agree the quality of the housing is not good enough for 2015. Last but one was 22 Foxley Lane. This was tree works, slightly odd one. This was an applicant who lived next door to the person who had the tree, and it was overhanging. And this poor family were having bird droppings, were having leaf mulch and all this malarkey going into their garden, and I think that the person who owned the tree couldn't or didn't want to or wouldn't, whatever, do the works. So it was an application on a protected tree to do that. It had a BT line running through it, which was being damaged and was causing problems. It was a completely reasonable application, but because it's a protected tree, you have to get permission, and that permission was granted. There were some objections that came through, but they were mainly down to I think technical things with the way it had been treated in terms of the planning officer, and whether or not the BT line could be moved. Apparently that's very, very expensive, and BT don't really like doing it without giving them wads of cash. So that was put through, and it was a beautiful tree, Foxley Lane. I realise I'm sending you out on a grand tour of Worthing, but once you've gone and seen the revolting vents at Wyke Avenue, pop up to 22 Foxley Lane and see their frankly fantastic tree. It's a beautiful tree, and long may it be protected and live there forever. Lastly was 70 C Lane, which was an extension, replacement porch, and a few other bits and pieces that went through with no objections at all. And that was it. That was the meeting. The meeting was relatively well attended. The protesters were outside again for the say no to 0870, no to the tower down on the Ocarina site. I'm really looking forward to that application, Sucker for Punishment, when it comes through. We haven't seen it yet. I've seen the stuff in the paper as you have and on social media, but I'm doing my absolute best to retain a really open mind, because we need the housing. We need a landmark development, we need something decent, and we frankly need to pay for Splash Point, which is why we've logged off the Ocarina. So something needs to happen, but it needs to be decent, it needs to be good quality, it needs to not hack off the neighbours, and it needs to fit in as far as is possible. So looking forward to that. But that wraps it up. Not quite 5 minutes, but thank you for sticking through it. If you've watched all this, well done. Please comment down below. Please follow me on Facebook if you watch this on YouTube, facebook.com/Edward Crouch UK. If you're watching this on Facebook and you want to follow me on Twitter, just add edwardcrouch.uk. I'm on there somewhere. So thank you for watching. Please share this with anyone you think might care. Please come to the next planning meeting, which will be next month, and have a fantastic evening. Try not to get blown away. And my final thought, not like Jerry Springer. My final thought, I feel like I should hold a piece of paper and look meaningful with a pen, maybe. Tell your neighbours. So many applications that come through us, people don't tell their neighbours, they don't talk to their neighbours. They stick things up, they stick fences, they stick walls up, they don't tell their neighbours. Then their neighbours fall out and you have all this horrible bitterness between people. Just tell your neighbours. If you want to put a fence up, rather than think, Reg won't like that, I'm not going to tell him to put it up and hide, just knock on his door. He might be like, I've been meaning to put a fence up for years, and give your neighbour the good side as well. Don't give him the ropey side, that's just mean. So thank you, thanks for watching, have a good evening. Must be dinner time, so enjoy your weekend, and I will see you in the next video next month. Thanks a lot, have a good evening, good night.